The Deep Space Communication Center in Seoul had been quiet for over a year. Dr. Wang Minho walked through the facility like he did every morning, checking equipment that rarely did anything more than listen to empty space. The massive transmission arrays pointed toward distant stars, waiting for something that might never come. Today felt different. The arrays were humming with an energy that made the hair on his arms stand up. Warning lights flashed across multiple control panels, and the usual background noise of cosmic radiation had been replaced by something else entirely. Director Wang, Lee Suna called out from her workstation. She was the best codebreaker they had, a woman who could find patterns in the most random noise. Her voice carried exhaustion from weeks of working on something that had everyone puzzled. We finally broke through. This signal isn't natural. Someone sent this to us on purpose. Minho hurried over to where Park Jun-ho was hunched over his computer screens. The young man was their language expert, someone who could make sense of any communication pattern. His eyes were red from staring at data for days, but his fingers moved quickly across the holographic displays floating in front of him. "What do you have?" Minho asked. The room filled with strange music that seemed to come from another world. It was beautiful and sad at the same time, like a song of desperation. As they listened, words began appearing on the main screen in perfect Korean translation. To the warriors of the third planet of Seoul, we are the Vexi of Kepler 442. Our worlds burn. The devourers come. They consume everything. We have watched your transmissions. You know war. You know survival. Please save us. Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing. Kim Hye-jin, their military advisor, stepped closer to read the message again. This is really from aliens? Not some kind of joke or test? Choi Do-yan from the physics team was already running calculations on his computer. It's definitely real. The signal came from exactly where they say they're from, planet orbiting the star Kepler 442. But there's something incredible here. He paused, looking at his data with wide eyes. The technology they use to send this message is hundreds of years more advanced than anything we have. Minho felt like the world had suddenly become much larger and more dangerous. This was the moment everything changed for humanity. Get Admiral Yoon Tae-yan on the line immediately. Tell him to drop everything and get here now. While his team worked frantically to contact Earth's military leaders, Suna discovered more information hidden in the alien transmission. Director, there's additional data embedded in their message. They've sent us information about their enemy. These devourers, they mentioned. The additional data painted a terrifying picture. The devourers were not just another alien species. They were something like a disease that spread from star system to star system, consuming entire civilizations. In the past 100 years, they had completely destroyed 17 different solar systems, leaving nothing behind but dead worlds. They're not invaders looking for resources, Suna explained as she processed the information. They consume everything, living and then move on to the next target. It's like they exist only to destroy. The facility became a hub of frantic activity as news of first contact spread through Earth's government and military systems. Scientists, linguists, and military strategists were summoned from around the world. But as Minho studied the alien message, one thing became clear to him. The Vexi had not contacted Earth because humans were peaceful explorers or wise diplomats. They had specifically called for the warriors of Earth. These aliens had been watching human television, radio, and internet transmissions. They had studied humanity's history and culture. What they found was a species that excelled at one thing, above all others: warfare. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years, developing increasingly sophisticated ways to destroy their enemies. They had survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and even their own nuclear weapons. The Vexi were calling for help because they recognized something in humanity that their own peaceful civilization lacked. When faced with total extinction, they needed allies who understood how to fight for survival at any cost. As Admiral Yoon Tae-yan's transport ship approached the facility, Minho realized that Earth's first contact with alien life was not going to be about sharing knowledge or exploring the universe together. It was going to be about war. The aliens had sent a desperate message across the galaxy asking for salvation. Earth was about to respond by sending the one thing humans had always been better at than anyone else: the ability to fight, survive, and win against impossible odds. The Devourers had spent a century consuming civilizations that fought defensively and tried to preserve life. They were about to encounter something they had never faced before, a species that had learned to fight offensively and was willing to destroy everything to protect what mattered. Humanity's greatest strength was also its most terrifying characteristic. When faced with extinction, humans didn't just fight back. They fought to make sure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. The signal from space had asked Earth to save them. Earth was about to send its walking extinction in response. Admiral Yoon Tae-yoon had seen war before. His face carried scars from the Mars Colony Rebellion. His eyes held the cold determination of someone who had made the hardest decisions a human could make. Now he stood in the command center of the TFS Indomitable, looking at 12 of the most powerful warships humanity had ever built. The ships floated in formation around Earth's orbital stations like sleeping giants. Each one was the size of a small city, packed with weapons that had been designed but never used in real combat. Their hulls were painted black with silver markings, and their names told the story of human warfare: Scorched Earth, Final Solution, Inevitable, Extinction Protocol. "We are no longer just Earth's military," Tyen told his assembled captains through the communication system. "We are about to become the galaxy's first contact with human warfare, and that means we represent our entire species." Captain Song Mi-jin commanded the Scorched Earth, a ship designed specifically for planetary assault. She was a veteran of 3 different colonial wars and had never lost a battle. "Admiral, we know very little about these Devourers. How do we fight an enemy that has destroyed 17 different civilizations?" Namseo Kachin, the fleet's chief strategist, activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed the Kepler star system with detailed information about the alien threat. "The Vexi have given us everything they know about the enemy. The Devourers are part biological, part machine. They learn from every battle and adapt their tactics to counter whatever weapons are used against them. That means every civilization they've fought has made them stronger," added Dr. Kong Woojin, the fleet's science officer. "They've absorbed the military knowledge of 17 different species." Captain Bei Juwan, commander of the Final Solution, smiled grimly. "Good. That means they think they understand warfare. They're about to learn they've never fought humans." Before, the journey to Kepler 442 would take 2 years through hyperspace. During that time, the human fleet prepared for war with the methodical precision that had made humanity the dominant species on Earth. Every day was filled with training, planning, and preparation for battles that would determine the fate of entire civilizations. Dr. Kong Woojin spent his time studying every piece of data about the Devourers. His xenobiology team worked around the clock to understand how the enemy reproduced, communicated, and adapted to new threats. They discovered that the Devourers were like a virus that infected entire star systems, growing stronger with each world they consumed. Colonel Shin Hyesu trained the ground forces in tactics that had never been used in space warfare. His soldiers practiced fighting in zero gravity on alien worlds and inside enemy structures. They learned to use weapons that could function in any environment and to fight battles where retreat was not an option. "The Vexi are a peaceful species," reported Lieutenant Commander Park Jun during one of the daily briefings. "They have never developed weapons designed to completely destroy their enemies. They fight to protect themselves, not to eliminate threats permanently." Major Lim Daeon looked up from cleaning his assault rifle. "That's their mistake. Humans learned a long time ago that some enemies have to be destroyed completely. You can't negotiate with extinction." The Vexi had sent detailed information about their own military capabilities. Their weapons were sophisticated and efficient, designed to disable enemy forces with minimal damage to surrounding areas. Their tactics focused on defense and preservation of life, even enemy life when possible. This approach had failed completely against the Devourers. The alien plague had adapted to every defensive strategy, learned to counter every weapon, and eventually overwhelmed every world through sheer persistence and evolution. As the human fleet approached the Kepler system, long-range sensors began, transmitting images that shocked even the hardened military veterans. The outer planets of the system were completely dark, their surfaces covered with massive biomechanical structures that looked like metallic cancers. Spreading across entire continents, "We're not just conquering the planets," whispered communications. Officer Rusiala as she processed the sensor data. "They're converting them into something else entirely." The images showed worlds that had been transformed into factory farms for producing more devourers. The original ecosystems had been completely replaced with alien machinery that harvested raw materials and energy to create new units for the ever-expanding swarm. Only the inner planets still showed signs of the original Vexi civilization, and even those were flickering like candles in a hurricane. The defensive installations that had held back the devourers for decades were failing one by one. Admiral Taeyun studied tactical displays with the expression of a man who had seen this kind of devastation before. The Vexi called for warriors, and that's what we're going to give them. But they probably don't understand what human warriors actually are. "What's the difference?" asked Captain Song Mijin. "Other species fight to win battles," Taeyan replied. "Humans fight to end wars, permanently." The fleet began final preparations for combat. As they entered the Kepler system, the Devourers were about to encounter something they had never faced in their centuries of conquest. A species that didn't fight defensively to preserve life, but offensively to eliminate threats. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth didn't send explorers to face extinctional dangers. Earth sent humans instead. The teleportation platform aboard the Indomitable glowed with soft blue light as the first aliens humanity had ever met appeared before them. The Vexi were nothing like what the human crew had expected. They were tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Their eyes were large and filled with an ancient sadness that spoke of centuries of suffering. High Counselor Vexthera stepped forward with movements that seemed to flow, like water. When they spoke, their voice sounded like music mixed with wind chimes. "Welcome, warriors of Earth. We have waited so long for someone to answer our call for help." Admiral Taeyun had prepared for this moment during the entire 2-year journey. He bowed respectfully, showing the same courtesy he would give to any ally. "We came as fast as our ships could travel. Wow. Show us exactly what we're dealing with." The briefing room transformed as holographic displays filled the air with images of the enemy. The Devourers looked like nightmares made real, massive creatures that seemed to be part living tissue and part machine. They moved across planetary surfaces like flowing metal, consuming everything in their path and leaving behind only twisted biomechanical structures. Dr. Kong Wujin studied the images with scientific fascination, even though what he was seeing represented the destruction of entire civilizations. How do they reproduce? How do they spread from planet to planet? Vexi Tactical Advisor Murthane activated additional displays showing the Devourers in combat. They learn from every encounter. When we use energy weapons, they develop resistance within hours. When we try kinetic bombardment, they adapt armor that deflects our projectiles. Even biological weapons become useless after they analyze our attack patterns. Captain Song Mijin frowned as she watched the tactical data. "When you say they adapt within hours, exactly how fast are we talking about?" "Your equivalent of 3. 2 for Earth hours," Vexera explained. "We call them cycles. In less than 1 cycle, they can completely counter any weapon system we deploy against them." The human officers exchanged glances. This was faster adaptation than anything they had encountered in Earth's military history. Colonel Shinhayesu leaned forward to study the combat footage more carefully. "You've been fighting purely defensively. All of these engagements show your forces trying to protect specific locations or retreat to safer positions." Expression showed confusion. "Of course. We are not a species that seeks to destroy our enemies. We build civilizations, we explore the universe, we try to preserve life wherever we find it. The concept of total warfare is completely foreign to our nature." Major Lim Dayon looked up from his tactical analysis. You're fighting to not lose, instead of fighting to win. Is there a difference? Vexthera asked. Admiral. Tayon's expression grew cold as he processed the strategic situation. When humanity faces an extinction-level threat, we don't fight to survive. We fight to make sure the threat stops existing. Permanently. The Vexi delegation seemed puzzled by this concept. They had evolved on worlds where competition existed, but total annihilation was rare. Their wars, when they occurred, were fought with honor and restraint. The idea of deliberately seeking to completely eliminate an enemy was as alien to them as their technology was to humans. How do you fight differently? Rathane asked. Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding. Throughout the ship, Communications Officer Rusiala announced that long-range sensors had detected a massive Devourer assault fleet approaching the inner planets of the Kepler system. They're targeting your homeworld, Lieutenant Commander Park Jun reported as tactical data filled the screens. Estimated arrival in 18 hours, Vexi fleet moved to intercept the approaching threat with their characteristic grace and precision. Their ships were beautiful, designed with flowing lines that seemed more like art than military hardware. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that carved through space with elegant efficiency. For the first few hours of the battle, it seemed like the combined Vexi and human forces might be able to hold the line. The alien defenders fought with practiced skill, their energy weapons slicing through the Devourer's swarm with devastating effect. Then the enemy began to adapt. Their whole composition is changing, reported Dr. Kong Woojin, as he monitored the battle from the Indomitable's science station. The Vexi weapons are becoming less effective with each passing minute. Within 3 hours, the Devourer forces had developed complete resistance to every weapon in the Vexi arsenal. What had been a coordinated defense became a desperate retreat as the alien plague pressed forward with unstoppable momentum. Admiral Taeyeon watched the tactical display with the calm expression of someone who had seen this scenario many times before. He activated the fleet-wide communication system and spoke words that would echo through galactic history. All human ships. This is Admiral Yoon. You are authorized to engage with full force. Show them what Earth considers a normal Tuesday. The human fleet opened fire with weapons the Vexi had never imagined. Instead of precise energy beams, the humans used kinetic projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed. Instead of trying to disable the enemy, they deployed weapons designed to completely destroy anything they hit. The Devourer's adaptation protocols, evolved over centuries of fighting defensive civilizations, countered something completely new, an enemy that escalated faster than they could adapt. By the eternal light, whispered Vexthera, as they watched human forces systematically dismantle Devourer units that had been unstoppable for decades. What kind of beings are you? Admiral Taeyeon never looked away from the tactical display. We're the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and nuclear war. We're what evolution creates when it's trying to build something that absolutely refuses to die. The Devourer command ship Apex. Consumption had conquered star systems for 300 years without ever facing a real challenge. The biomechanical collective that controlled it had learned to expect the same pattern from every species they encountered. Initial resistance followed by gradual weakening as the defenders ran out of resources and hope. The humans were different. Instead of growing weaker over time, they seemed to become more dangerous with each passing day. Fleet Admiral Yoon Tae-yoon stood in the war room of the Indomitable, watching tactical displays that showed battles happening across 17 different locations in the Kepler system. His staff moved around him with practiced efficiency, treating interstellar warfare like a complicated game of chess, where the goal was not just to win, but to eliminate the opponent completely. Colonel Shin Hyezu, what's the situation on the Vex High homeworld? Taeyeon asked, without looking away from the displays. Completely secure, Admiral, Shin replied from his command station. Major Lim De-yoon's ground forces have set up a defensive perimeter, using atmospheric processors that have been modified as weapons. The Devourers can't adapt to having the basic chemistry of the air changed every few minutes. Dr. Kong Woojin looked up from his biological warfare station with barely contained excitement. The viral agents we deployed are working better than we hoped. We designed them specifically to attack the Devourer's ability to adapt. They can't develop resistance to something that prevents them from developing resistance. High Counselor. Vexthera observed the human operations with growing amazement and horror. The elegant alien had spent centuries fighting a defensive war against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Now they watched humans treat the same enemy like a minor inconvenience that needed to be cleaned up efficiently. Admiral, your forces are not simply defeating the Devourers, Vexthera said quietly. You are hunting them across multiple star systems simultaneously. Correct, Taeyan replied without emotion. Commander Nam Seok-shin, what's our deployment status? Nam Seok-jin activated a galactic map showing human forces spread across a vast area of space. Captain Song Mi-jin has positioned the scorched earth around the Devourer's primary breeding world. Captain Beijuan is preparing stellar manipulation. Charges around their command system's home star. Lieutenant Commander Park Jun has located and is targeting their quantum communication network. Vexthera's iridescent skin seemed to pale as they processed what they were hearing. Stellar manipulation? You're using stars themselves as weapons? The Devourers use stellar energy to reproduce and spread. Major Lim Daeon explained in the same tone he might use to discuss the weather. If we remove their energy source, we remove their ability to create new units. It's a permanent solution. But the planets in those star systems, Vexthera protested. There might be other forms of life. The Devourers already consumed everything. Living in those systems, Taeyon said. We're just making sure they can never consume anything else. The systematic destruction of the Devourer Collective took 6 months of continuous warfare. Human forces pursued fleeing biomechanical entities across 47 star systems, using tactics that started with orbital bombardment and escalated to induced stellar collapse when necessary. Dr. Ru Ciala coordinated the deployment of quantum viruses that infected the Devourer's collective consciousness, turning their own communication network against them. Commander Park Jun-ho led teams that weaponized the aliens' adaptation ability, creating weapons that became more deadly the more the Devourers tried to resist them. The human approach to warfare was completely unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other species fought battles, humans fought campaigns designed to eliminate problems permanently. They didn't just want to win individual engagements, they wanted to make sure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. The final command node is retreating toward the edge of the galaxy, Captain Song Mi-jin reported during one tactical briefing. They're trying to escape our engagement zone. Negative, Admiral Taeyon replied immediately. Colonel Shin, deploy. The containment field generators. Nothing gets out of this system alive. Vexthera watched in stunned silence as human forces systematically tracked down and destroyed the last Devourer entities. The level of coordination and ruthless efficiency was beyond anything their peaceful civilization had ever imagined possible. This level of warfare is beyond our comprehension, Vexthera said. You fight as if you have experienced destroying entire species? We do, Major Lim Dae-yoon replied, while checking his weapon systems for the 3rd time that day. Back on Earth, we had wars that were worse than this. Consider this a relatively easy cleanup operation. The final Devourer Collective died in the cold space between stars, consumed by weapons that turned their own evolutionary advantages against them. For the first time in 3 centuries, their biomechanical screams fell completely silent across. The Galaxy Communications Officer Ru Ciala looked up from her station with a confused expression. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from 67 different star systems. They all seem to be asking the same question. Who are we, and what do we want? Taeyon studied the galactic map, now marked with the locations where human forces had operated. Dark zones indicated areas where entire star systems had been sterilized to prevent the Devourers from ever returning. Tell them we're from Earth, he said calmly. Tell them we came to help the Vex-High with a pest problem, and if they ask what we are, Ciala asked. The Admiral's smile was as cold as deep space itself. Tell them we're what happens when evolution spends millions of years trying to create something that never learned how to give up. 6 months had passed since the last Devourer ship had been destroyed, and the galaxy would never be the same. Every species within 100 light-years of the Kepler system had heard the story of how Its warriors had eliminated a threat that had terrorized civilizations for centuries. Admiral Yoon Taeyeon stood in the grand diplomatic hall of the rebuilt Vexi capital city. The elegant aliens had constructed this chamber specifically to host representatives from dozens of different species, all of whom had come to witness what historians would later call the Treaty of Necessary Evils. The Vexi had built a monument in the center of their capital to honor their human saviors. The statues showed human soldiers in full combat gear, weapons ready, faces hidden behind tactical masks. Somehow the artists had managed to capture both the heroic nature of the rescue and the terrifying efficiency with which it had been carried out. Ambassador Lee Suna approached the admiral with a datapad full of diplomatic messages. Her translation: equipment was working constantly to process communications from species speaking dozens of different languages. The Zellan Confederacy wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth, she reported. They're offering tribute payments in exchange for protection from any future threats. Captain Song Mijin joined them with her own stack of requests. The Morthok Empire is asking if we can send military advisors to help them with what they're calling a pest problem. Apparently, they have some kind of hostile species in their territory that they can't handle themselves. More requests kept arriving every day. The Crystalline Collective wanted to purchase human weapons technology. Andorian Trade Federation was asking for permission to establish monitoring stations that could track Earth ship movements. 3 different species had voluntarily relocated their homeworlds to positions where they could request human assistance more quickly if needed. High Counselor Vexathera approached with their characteristic flowing movements. Fundamental had changed in their luminous eyes. The ancient wisdom was still there, but it was now mixed with something that looked very much like fear. Admiral, the Galactic Council has made a decision after months of debate. They wish to offer Earth a permanent position in galactic governance. As members of the Council, asked Dr. Kong Wujin, who had been studying the various alien cultures they had encountered. Vexera hesitated before answering. As supervisors, the galaxy has decided it needs guardians who understand how to deal with extinctional-level threats. Colonel Shin Haisu looked up from his security reports. They're afraid of us. Terrified. Vexthera confirmed without trying to hide the truth. The Devourers were considered an unstoppable nightmare that had consumed worlds for 3 centuries. You eliminated them completely in 6 months. Most species are still trying to understand what that means about human capabilities. Commander Nam Seokjin activated a holographic display showing communication traffic from across the galaxy. We've been monitoring transmissions between different star systems. They're broadcasting warnings about us across 74 different civilizations. They're calling us the Death Worlders from Seoul. Major Lim Daeon smiled as he cleaned his rifle with the same methodical precision he had shown throughout the campaign. I've been called worse things by my own people. New signal appeared on the communication array, interrupting their discussion. Lieutenant Commander Park Jun frowned as she processed the incoming message. Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Rigel system, an unknown hostile force, requesting immediate military assistance. The diplomatic chamber fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Another species somewhere in the galaxy was facing an extinction-level threat and had decided that Earth was their best hope for survival. Admiral Taeyun studied the message with the calm expression of someone who had been expecting this moment. Another Tuesday, he asked his staff. Another Tuesday, Captain Bei Juan confirmed from her position at the tactical station. Colonel Shin, prepare the 3rd Fleet for immediate deployment. Standard extinction protocols, Taeyeon ordered. Vixthera stepped forward with obvious concern. Admiral, perhaps this time we could attempt diplomatic solutions first? Try to negotiate? With this new threat before resorting to warfare? The human officers exchanged glances that spoke of shared experience and understanding. Dr. Ru, Ciala answered for all of them. High Counselor, we tried diplomacy with the Devourers. We sent them a message telling them to stop existing. Didn't comply. What was their response to your diplomatic message? Vexthera asked. Major Lim Daeon shrugged. They didn't have time to respond. We don't usually wait for answers when we issue extinction ultimatums. As the human fleet prepared for its next deployment, reports continued flooding in from across the galaxy. The Andorian Trade Federation had established a new government department specifically dedicated to tracking Earthship movements. The Crystalline Collective had founded a religion that worshipped humanity as divine cleaners sent to purge darkness from the universe. Several species had begun studying human history and culture, trying to understand how one planet had produced such effective warriors. What they discovered terrified them even more. Humans considered the elimination of the Devourers to be a relatively minor military operation. Admiral Taeyun looked out at the stars through the chamber's massive windows. Each point of light now represented a civilization that knew Earth existed and feared what that meant for the future of the galaxy. "Ambassador Lee, prepare our response to the Galactic Council," he said. "Tell them we accept their offer of guardianship." "Terms should I include?" she asked. "No terms," Taeyun replied. "We're not conquerors or rulers. We're just the species that shows up when something needs to stop existing." Vexthera joined him at the window. "You ever regret being what you've are?" The Admiral considered the question as another distress signal arrived from a system facing something called the Crimson Tide. Captain Song. Mijin was already coordinating the human response. "We didn't choose to become evolution's answer to extinction," he said finally. "But since we're here, nothing else gets to end civilizations except us." In the depths of space, the TFS Inevitable began its journey toward the Rigel system. Carrying humanity's promise to a universe that had learned to fear its protectors, another Tuesday, another extinction to prevent, another reminder that Earth didn't send diplomats to solve galaxy-ending problems. Earth sent humans.